Hello, Year 7. This week I'm using a new piece of software, which is exciting because it means that you can see me, hello, at the same time as me going through the lessons with you. Now, you'll remember last week that we started a new topic. In Lesson 7, you thought about what mattered to young Henry VIII, and in Lesson 8, you considered what mattered to middle-aged Henry VIII. Today is the last lesson in those three lessons, and we're talking about what mattered most to old Henry VIII, from 1535 to 1547. Now, the first thing you're going to need to go ahead and do is read the key words and the definitions in the blue box. Pause the video here and do that now. Okay, secondly, you need to work on the quizlet underneath. You need to complete all three of these sentences. Henry VIII wanted a son, so Henry VIII wanted a son, however, and the challenge, Henry VIII wanted a son, therefore. Now you'll notice that on the second two sentences there is a typo. The so should not be there, so cross it out like I just did. Cross out the so. Pause the video here. Complete those three sentences now. Okay, once you've done that, you're going to spend some time thinking about the image underneath, this image here. Now, the first thing you'll want to do is read the information at the top. We call this the provenance. It's where the source comes from, who wrote it, when it was written, etc. And you'll see that this is the inside front cover of a book called Henry's Great Bible, Henry VIII's Great Bible, okay? And it was made in 1539, and it was the first Bible written in English. Now, hopefully, if you use your knowledge of the Reformation, remember when we studied Martin Luther, and also the English Reformation that you learnt about last lesson in Lesson 8, you'll start to understand why that's significant or important. Of course, Martin Luther translated the Bible into German. Now, the same thing's happening in England once the Protestant Reformation has happened, once England has changed from Catholic to Protestant, thanks to Henry VIII's changes. Also, before you start answering the questions, you're going to want to look at the pictures underneath, because I've actually given you some hints about who some of these people in the picture are. Now, you probably were able to infer this for yourself, but if you look at the top here, as it says, this person is Henry VIII, and there's a picture of him underneath here. A couple of other people that I want you to just make note of and remind yourself who they are. Archbishop Thomas Cranmer here, handing out Bibles. Thomas Cromwell, Henry's great fixer, standing there doing the same thing. And finally, you won't know this person, a priest at the bottom, telling people to pray for Henry. Okay? Take note of where those people are and what they are doing. And then you're going to answer these questions. Write at least three interesting things you can see in source A. For example, I might say I can see Thomas Cranmer handing out Bibles. Why might people be handing out Bibles? Why is Thomas Cranmer, Thomas Cromwell, Henry, why are they handing out Bibles to people? And finally, what can you infer mattered to Henry VIII when he had this picture made? Remember, that word infer means to work out. Go and answer all of those questions now, and if you finish, do the challenge 2, write another inference. It should take you about 5 minutes. Pause the video here, complete those tasks now. So if this were me, I think I'd be saying, well, I think Thomas Cranmer handing out Bibles is quite interesting. I think he's also, by the looks of things, handing it out to a monk. A monk is a holy person who lives in a monastery. Remember, the monasteries were being closed. And then I think, well, why is he handing out Bibles? Well, I think it's something to do with wanting to spread religion. I'll be writing that here. And something to do probably also with wanting to show Henry's power and show how much Henry's willing to do for the people. I think I'd also be writing those things here in full sentences. Remember, use the question stem in your sentence, otherwise it's not a full sentence. My inference then, I think I'd be saying something like this. I can infer that what mattered to Henry VIII when he had this picture made was religion, because he wants to spread the word about him switching the religion of Britain from Catholicism to Protestantism. And I can see this by Thomas Cranmer handing a Bible to a monk. There's probably there are other inferences that you could make. So if you struggle to make an inference, I want you to now do your own. Don't just copy out the one I said. Write your own inference either here or here. Pause the video and do that now. Okay, once you've done that, you'll see that there's some reading in the yellow box on the next page. You need to pause the video here and read it. Pause the video, do that now. Okay, as you've just read, Henry VIII had a pretty serious accident in 1536 that affected him negatively for the rest of his life. There's also some other key changes that occurred, such as the beheading of Anne Boleyn, pretty big, important change for Anne especially, but also the silver lining, where Jane Seymour finally gives birth to a son, Edward, the future Edward VI, on the 12th of October 1537. That meant the King's Great Matter that we studied last lesson, first of all, the divorce and then having a son, was solved. He had secured his dynasty, the next person in line to be king. So Henry, as it says, switches his focus to his legacy. That means how he's going to be remembered. What will he have done? What might he have changed? And there are three things, as it says, that really mattered to Henry at this time: power, money, and religion. We've already seen, and you've just read about, one way that we can use as evidence to prove that religion mattered to Henry, his great Bible. And also maybe power as well, the way he's depicted, the way he's shown higher up than everybody else. You're going to spend the rest of this lesson finding more evidence to help us prove that power, money, and religion really mattered to old Henry. Okay? And you'll see this table here. Well, you're going to use the writing on the next page and a half to help you fill in that table. We'll do the first bit together first. So I can see here it says that this writing is about the later years of Henry VIII's reign from 1535 to 1547, when Henry closes the monasteries. And it says, over centuries, monasteries, now I can't remember what monasteries means, so I'm going to go back to the keywords at the start of the lesson, and it says that a monastery is a building where monks and nuns pray, work and live. I know a monk and a nun are holy people. Okay, great, I know what they're talking about now, that's useful. So monasteries had become very rich, already thinking this is maybe about money. They owned about a quarter of all the land in England, and the buildings were full of valuable treasures. Henry wanted to use this wealth to pay for his wars and to build more magnificent palaces. Henry VIII had made himself leader of the Church of England in 1534. Therefore, it was against the law to support the Pope, the head of the Catholic Church based in Rome in Italy. Henry suspected monks and nuns still supported the Pope, not him. Okay, so straight away then I'm thinking, well, I could write in here around money that the monasteries, I'm just going to write monks because you'll see it's very difficult to write on this. It looks like a spider. Monks are rich. Not the neatest writing I've ever done. I could also maybe write in power, and I'm not going to do this because you've seen it's very difficult to write. I could also maybe write in power that Henry's concerned that the monks and nuns support the Pope, not Henry. I'm probably already starting to make some inferences at this point about what Henry might do, what he might change, but I'm going to need to read on to confirm those. Between 1536 and 1540, Henry closed down all 800 monasteries in England and Wales. Henry kept some of the land he took from the monasteries he closed himself. He sold the rest of the land to nobles and other rich men. Henry also kept valuable treasures he took from the monasteries. Okay, so here I've got some more evidence that I could put in money to prove money mattered to Henry. What evidence might I use? Well, he took land from the monasteries. He sold the rest of the land to nobles. That's going to make him some money. He kept lots of the valuable treasures. Those are all things that I would be writing on my table into money. If I read on, Henry used his new wealth to build forts along the south coast of England to defend the country from invasions. I think that's probably about power, because this is going to help Henry to become more powerful, not just in Britain, but really across the world, because he can defend Britain more easily. So I think that equally is something that I would probably go ahead and write in power. I can hear you almost screaming at home, but sir, there's definitely stuff about religion here. And yeah, you're absolutely right. Of course, this is about religion too. He's closing down the monasteries. So clearly, he's limiting or trying to control religion. So you could also make some notes here too. I think you're getting the idea. You need to go ahead now and read the rest of the text in the yellow box and the one on the next page and continue to fill in your table. It should take you about 10 minutes to do it properly. Pause the video here and do that now. If you finish that, you'll also notice that there is a challenge task underneath that you can also do now. I'd like you all to do that actually, because we need to keep practicing our inference skills. So pause the video here, write an inference about what Henry VIII values from the Whitehall mural. That's that picture above. Pause the video here and do that task now. Okay, once you've done that, the next two tasks are discussion tasks. Now, obviously, you can't do these as we normally would in school, but you can still go and find somebody that you're with at the moment, maybe a parent or guardian or sibling, and ask them. You're going to need to fill them in on what you've studied so far about what happened to young Henry and middle-aged Henry, and then discuss with them what you've learned in this lesson, and tell them what mattered to Henry VIII. You're then, when he was old, you're then going to make a list underneath of what mattered to old Henry VIII. Once you've done that, as you can see on the next discussion task, you're going to decide what you think mattered most. So you're really going to need to discuss that in depth with the person that you're talking to. What mattered most, power, money, or religion, or something else, to old-aged Henry? Pause the video here, go and have those discussions now. Okay, so you should have written down here what you think mattered most to middle-aged Henry, power, money, religion, or something else. like all good history, we need some facts now to back that up. So where it says fact A and fact B underneath, there's also space for more facts if you need. You're going to write your facts to back up why this thing you think mattered most to Henry VIII. So for example, if I had written power, I would now be looking for, like a dyslexic spider again, I would now be looking for facts that I could use to back up and write down here as to why I think power mattered the most. Now to do that, I've got a couple of options. I can go back to my table, I can look at my power column, and I can write down facts from here. Or if I want to be really specific, I might do that and also go back to my, the reading in the yellow boxes, and I might write down particular facts from here. For example, I might write that this is about power, closing the 800 monasteries, because that gave Henry new wealth, which meant he could build forts along the south coast of England to defend the country, which is going to give him more power internationally around the world. He becomes a more powerful king and leader. Okay? So hopefully that should be clear. What I need you to do is go ahead and write down at least 2, but more if you can, facts to back up why you think whatever you wrote here mattered most to middle-aged Henry. Should take you about 5 minutes. Pause the video here and do that now. Okay, once you've done that, above, you should now have a list of facts. You're going to put a star next to whatever you think, not a very good star, whatever you think is the most powerful fact that you've written up here. Once you've done that, you're going to use that fact in a mini claim paragraph underneath by completing this sentence, adding some facts, and explaining why those facts prove the claim in the first sentence. You're basically just writing up what you've done above. What do you think mattered most to Henry? Well, that's going to go in the first sentence, the claim. Your facts, the most powerful one, that's going to go in your second sentence, the evidence. Then you just need to explain how your facts prove the claim. Simple. And if you finish that, you can move on to the 2 challenge tasks that are underneath. It should take you to do it properly, including the challenge tasks, about 15 minutes. So you need to pause the video and do that task now. Okay, once you've done that, you can move on to the next lesson for today, which you'll notice is a revision lesson. That's because after Easter, you'll be doing your Aspiring for Excellence. I'll send more details out about that by email after the Easter holidays. Now, as always, the first thing you're going to do is read the keywords in the blue box. Pause the video here and do that now. Once you've done that, you're going to move on to the quiz it task underneath. Now, you know where to find this information about the Reformation. Go and look at your last lessons or go and look at your knowledge organizer. You can find a definition there if you don't know it. This also you can do on your own because you've just done this in the last 2 lessons. What you may need some help with, but you're going to try and do alone first, are the timelines. I'll go through those shortly, but I need you all now to pause the video and complete all of the quiz it tasks. It should take you to do it properly about 10 minutes. Pause the video here, do those tasks now. Okay, as promised, I'm going to go through these 2 tasks with you. Now, A, medieval England. That's from roughly 1066, Battle of Hastings, until 1485, Battle of Bosworth, won by Henry VII, Henry VIII's father. So A would go here. Roman Britain, from roughly 443 AD until roughly 440 AD, so that's going to go here. Anglo-Saxon England, well, that's from roughly 440 AD until the Battle of Hastings in 1066. So that's going to go here. Now, the Iron Age is a bit complicated. That actually starts before this timeline. So I'm going to draw a continuous box like that. Now, technically, it continues all the way until the end of Roman Britain in about 440 AD. But that could get a bit confusing because it overlaps with Roman Britain. So you're going to do it like we always do until 43 AD. The Iron Age would be there. Okay? Next, events. The printing press is invented by Johannes Gutenberg in about 1440. The Battle of Hastings is in 1066, 14th of October. The Peasants' Revolt was in 1381. And the Black Death arrives in England in 1348. Okay, as you'll see, most of this lesson is a revision lesson. Now, you've done this lots of times, so I'm not going to go through the next tasks in lots of detail. But you are going to be creating a timeline over the 2 pages from 400 BC to 2000 AD to prepare for your Aspiring for Excellence. You've done this loads of times, but follow the task they tell you what to do. Task 1, you need to put all of those time periods in bold along your timeline in the correct order. If you're not sure, check previous lessons. Next, tasks 3 and 4, you're going to add as many events that you can remember from cycle A, B, or C now to your timeline. And then task C, this is actually really important and I'd encourage you all to do it. You're going to draw your own pictures or symbols to show or link to the events that you've added to your timeline. It's something called dual coding. It makes it much easier for us to remember things because we've got it in picture form and writing form. It jogs your memory. The sillier or the more cryptic, the better, because you're more likely to remember it. Like mine, the Black Death. I'm more likely to remember something like that in an exam because it's a bit weird, a bit different. So this task should take you about 20 to 25 minutes. Pause the video and complete your timeline now. Now, once you've done that, as you'll see on the next page, there are 3 claim paragraphs. Claim A, claim B, and claim C. But you'll also notice, as it says in the explanation at the top, that these paragraphs are missing lots of evidence and therefore sentences, and that you need to finish these. What you need to do first, though, before you can do that, is read the 3 model paragraphs. Should take you about a minute each, so 3 minutes in total. Pause the video here, read the 3 model paragraphs now. Now, once you have finished that, the first step is to go ahead and fill in the evidence in the missing boxes. Now, I can see here it says, for example, in Henry VIII married of I can't remember that. I don't know who they're talking about. It just says a Spanish princess. No idea who that is. So I'm going to use my study skills and I'm going to go through the workbook and try and find the answer. Let's have a look. So if I go back to the first lesson on Henry VIII, is there anything here about a Spanish princess? No, doesn't look like it. This might help me. The quest for a son. Henry was determined to secure the future of the Tudor dynasty, so he needed a son to be the next king when he died. In June 1509, the king married Catherine of Aragon, a Spanish princess. Bingo, I found it. Right, let's go back. Remember, year 7, 1509, and king married Catherine of Aragon, a Spanish princess. That's what I'm looking for, I think. Oh, too far. That's to come after Easter. Don't want to give you a preview now. That would be far too exciting. So I could write here, for example, in 1509, Henry VIII married Catherine of Aragon, a Spanish princess. Cool. Should be quite clear what you need to do with the evidence. Once I've done that, I would add a therefore sentence. Now, it started off, but it's not finished. Therefore, what mattered most to young Henry was. Now, in order to work out what I need to write, I need to go back to the claim paragraph. Because remember, these paragraphs are like sandwiches, and the bread on the outside is your claim and your therefore sentence. So it would sound like this. Therefore, what mattered to young Henry was having a son. But I need to kind of give a bit more. I need to summarize what I've written in the paragraph to explain why that is correct. So I'm going to use evidence from here and talk about what I've written here. It might sound like this. Therefore, what mattered most to young Henry VIII was having a son. We can see this in the fact that he had a feast in 1511 to celebrate the birth of his son with Catherine of Aragon. This feast was expensive, and a celebration of that size makes it clear that it was important to Henry to secure the future of the Tudor dynasty by having a son. Full stop. That's what I'm looking for in your evidence and your therefore sentences. Now, before you start, you'll also notice that there is a typo in that first sentence. It should read, what mattered most to young Henry was a son. So you can correct that now. It should take you about 15 minutes, 5 minutes each, to complete each of those claim paragraphs. Once you finish, you can also move on to the challenge task underneath, decide which is the best claim and explain why. But once you've finished all of those, that's actually the end of this lesson. So when the video stops, you're going to go off and complete all of those paragraphs and the claim task or the challenge task underneath. I hope you've enjoyed this week's lessons. You won't hear anything from me with history lessons until after Easter, so I wish you all a restful and enjoyable Easter, and remember, keep washing those hands.